On my kicker tonight, my heart goes out to all head teachers across educational institutions in our country. I seek to lift your spirits and urge each one of you to walk tall and keep your heads high. The grade 10 transition has in the last few weeks been nothing short of a nightmare for the majority of head teachers and also to parents. To head teachers across the country, count yourself as some of Kenya's most valued miracle workers. I watched in horror as Education Cabinet Secretary Migos Ogamba addressed you from a raised pedestal, threatening fire and brimstone if you don't admit all the students that turn up at your gates, whether they have uniform or not, whether they had school fees or not. I did not hear him add, which he ought to have, that you must admit, whether they have beds or not, whether they have desks or not, and whether you have classrooms or not, just admit. That's the reason I regard you tonight as the unappreciated miracle workers in our difficult education sector. You became the dump site for responsibility dodgers. They evaded bigger questions and indeed their own responsibilities and passed it on to you, the head teachers. Because yours must be the elastic world of possibilities where every political instruction can be converted miraculously to a larger dormitory, bigger classes, you count it, or a solution at your level. The inaccessible places in your dormitories that can accommodate an infinite number of students. Good luck too with your dining halls and the school kitchens, with the countless numbers of students that are officially supposed to be countless and are reporting to your schools. In the bad old days, there used to be something called the carrying capacity of a school. Please reserve that now for theory in your crowded classes. And do not, I repeat, do not use your dormitory numbers just in case your illustrations upset your education bosses. And talking of bosses, political leadership in Kenya must wake up to the reality of the actual responsibility of government and leadership in between elections. As teachers struggle with the school transition nightmares, politicians are crisscrossing the country, talking about two-term and others talking about one-term. Conveniently, neither side talks about school term because this is an area of strict competence. Our politicians clearly enjoy the end term, not the beginning of a term and the business in between. That is why all their energies currently have shifted to 2027. They are looking forward to August next year like the way students look forward to closing day. And closing day, it ought to be for some of the politicians. It ought to be closing day, especially for those who have demonstrated low interest or outright cluelessness on the question of education in Kenya. In a display of utter insensitivity to anxieties of parents, teachers, and students, our politicians have proceeded as if grade 10 transition doesn't really matter. Our screens or media images are flooded with party colors as politicians feed us with the only thing they feel most competent about, election campaigns. And therein lies Kenya's tragedy. Our national life has been conditioned to be just about elections and election campaigns. And anything in between is an inconvenience. And if it makes for some really ridiculous tail chasing, when elected political leaders use the beginning or the middle of the school term to talk about their own terms. And this is why they should, in the meantime, respect those who are doing the heavy lifting in this country. In the case of education, That is our school head teachers and principals. Just respect them. Don't shout at them. Don't threaten them. Don't. Unless you actually know better. That is my kicker.
3 weeks ago, the Ministry of Education released the KCSE 2025 results. There were celebrations across the country as families and neighborhoods hailed the performance of their sons and daughters. Statistics show that the class of 2025 produced the highest number of quality grades in comparison to previous cohorts. 27% of those graded qualified to directly join universities whose minimum is C+. Now, flipping the coin, half of the class did not do as well. 48.7% of those graded scored between grades E and D+. Upon scrutiny, majority of the D+ and below performers attended sub-county schools, popularly known as day schools. Put differently, 2 in every 3 students who went to a day school ended up posting grades E, D-, D plain, or D+. So why is this the case? First, we are told that it depends on the entry behavior. That if a learner finished KCPE with 200 marks or less out of the possible 500, it is expected that at KCSE, the grade would be consistent. Perhaps there is logic in this. The only problem is that this explanation does not look at the bigger picture. A student at Raganga Secondary School in Kisii County had scored 305 marks out of 500 in KCPE 2021. 4 years later, the same student posted a grade D, the best for the school. Is it that the student lost his brain power in those 4 years? It is difficult to accept such an explanation, especially when you analyze the state of the school. An institution that lacks the basic infrastructure and equipment to support any meaningful learning. A place where teachers do not necessarily attend classes nor aspire to cover the syllabus. That institution, the Education Cabinet Secretary says, should not have existed as a school for the last 5 years. And so I ask, how many Ragangas do we have in the country? Let's turn the story for a moment. Why do students in national schools post impressive grades? Is it because of the entry behavior? Maybe. But the KCSE exam is worlds apart from KCPE. Meaning, what happens at school in the intervening 4 years is the most crucial determinant to behavior, not the entry behavior. In any case, there were 173 E's posted by national schools. Yet, at national schools, there is investment in facilities. There are more resources in capitation sent there, given the high number of students. Learners there have a totally different exposure. Yet, the national schools accommodated less than 5% of the class, meaning not sufficient for all our problems. Today, the government is rolling out a pro-youth program dubbed Nyota. Nyota for National Youth Opportunities Towards Advancement. A 29 billion shilling loan taken by the government of Kenya from the World Bank intended at empowering the youth, majorly those that didn't progress beyond Form 4. Let that sink. We are spending a 29 billion shilling loan to empower youth who did not progress beyond Form 4. Question: who doesn't progress beyond Form 4? It is usually the student who scores poorly at the KCSE. It is the student who scores grade E or D. Such students and others who lack funding to progress with their education see a poor KCSE grade as the end. And we cannot accept this to be okay. It's not. Why then, as a country, don't we invest in day schools to make them viable places for the young of Kenya to excel? And yes, we are transitioning to the competency-based education so that, quote, exams are no longer as important. But let's face it, there is no evidence that learners who are joining day schools now for senior school under CBE will have a better chance at the national stage than their 844 counterparts. it is highly likely that learners there will still post weaker outcomes. And then in a few years, the government will be forced to come up with yet another Nyota-like program to empower the youth who don't progress past senior school. For a country that yearns to reach Singapore status, we cannot neglect day schools and expect a manpower that builds the expressway to Singapore. At the very least, there ought to be value for money for the taxpayer who pays up to 700 billion shillings on education. Failing to think, plan, and strategically invest in schools that accommodate more than half of us is to lack sense at the sense of it. That's my sense tonight.
Hi guys, this hyacinth represents the state of our nation. Stagnation, corruption, tribalism. Our struggle to achieve a better Kenya. If you look behind me, you'll see the sun rising. And this symbolizes a new beginning. It symbolizes hope, a fresh start, a new Kenya. The only way we can have a new Kenya is if we have a new set of leadership, new faces, younger faces with new ideas. If we change systems and elect leaders and not politicians, we desperately need a new generation of leadership. And Youth 47 on the 13th of January will birth hope. Youth 47 seeks to encourage, to support, to build, to push for new, young leadership. On the 13th of January, Kenya will experience a rebirth. We have called upon young people who believe that they have the best interest of this nation at heart. Young people who believe that they are not politicians, but leaders. So on the 13th of January, we ask you to stand with us, pray with us, support us and believe in us. Have faith. We will be launching Youth 47. We believe that a newer, younger, fresher generation is the only way to change Kenya. God bless you. God bless Kenya. And I hope you're ready for a new Kenya from the 13th of January.
Better than the Messi.